Have you ever loved someone so much that even years apart couldn't erase the promise you made? When I was 16, there was someone who made the world feel lighter. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, and somehow always found our way to each other's company. I never labeled what we were back then. Friends, best friends, something more. But looking back, it was love, the quiet kind. The kind you don't fully understand until it's gone. Our favorite spot was the old train bridge on the edge of town. The tracks were long abandoned, rusty with age, and half covered in weeds. We'd climb up there after school, dangle our legs over the edge, and watch the water ripple below. It became our place for everything, celebrating small victories, sharing secrets, and imagining a life bigger than the one we knew. One late summer evening, the air heavy with the scent of rain that hadn't yet fallen, we sat in our usual spot. They turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Promise me something," they said. "What's that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "No matter what happens, 5 years from today, meet me here. Same time, same spot." I laughed, thinking it was just another one of our silly pacts. "Why?" They shrugged. "Because sometimes life changes. People move, things happen. I just want to know that somewhere in the future, there's a day where we see each other again." It sounded dramatic at the time, but the look in their eyes was serious, so I held out my pinky. "I promise." A month later, their family moved halfway across the country. The goodbye was quick, too quick. We hugged, said we'd call, and that was that. At first, we did keep in touch. Texts every day. Late night calls where we'd laugh about nothing. But life has a way of pulling people apart. The texts slowed, then stopped. Calls went unanswered. By the second year, we were strangers again, at least on the surface. But in the back of my mind, that promise stayed. Fast forward 5 years. It was the exact date we'd agreed on, and I woke up to a sky as gray as wet cement. Rain had been falling all morning, turning the dirt roads to mush. I told myself it was pointless. It had been years. They'd probably forgotten. And yet, the thought of breaking that promise made my chest ache. By late afternoon, I grabbed my jacket and headed out. The rain soaked through within minutes. My shoes squelched with every step on the muddy trail to the bridge. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I finally reached the edge of the woods, my breath caught. They were there, standing on the bridge, rain dripping off their hair, hands shoved into their pockets like they'd been waiting for hours. For a moment, I just watched. 5 years of distance evaporated in an instant. "You came," they said, smiling, voice unsteady. "Of course I did," I replied, my throat tight. We stood there, just looking at each other, the sound of rain on the river filling the silence. Then they reached into their jacket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. "I wrote this the night I left," they said. "I was going to give it to you the next day, but I didn't have the guts." I opened it carefully. The ink was smudged in places, but the words were clear. It was everything they hadn't said before, that they loved me, that leaving had broken their heart, that the only thing that kept them going through the loneliness was knowing we had a promise to keep. When I looked up, their eyes were wet, not just from the rain. "I didn't know if you'd still want to see me," they said quietly. "I didn't know if you'd remember," I admitted. And then, without overthinking it, I stepped forward and hugged them. Really hugged them. The kind of hug that says, "I've missed you for 1,000 days, and I don't want to let go." We stayed like that until the cold started to bite. Then we sat on the edge of the bridge, just like before, legs dangling over the river. We talked for hours about the years we'd missed, about what had changed and what hadn't. It wasn't perfect. Life never is. But in that moment, it felt like we'd found our way back to something we both thought was gone. Sometimes love doesn't need grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it just needs a promise kept.